Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some very cool battles in the Open Great League featuring close combat Shadow Machamp. Now Shadow Machamp is basically a forgotten Pokemon at this point. It used to be top meta seasons ago, but now it's very rarely used. I decided to bring it back and I wanted to run close combat instead of Rock Slide because close combat is absolutely devastating in neutral situations and honestly had all positive sets with the team. So without further ado, let's up into the matches and check out close combat Shadow Machamp in action in the Great League. Hopping to the first match, picking up a very tough lead, Toxapex into Sableye. Honestly, my entire team struggles against Sableye to a certain extent, so not the most fun Pokemon for me to see. I'm going to stay in here with Toxapex and basically just play out the Zero Shield and try and get as much damage as I possibly can with the Toxapex. Because if I can get it low, then hopefully my remaining two Pokemon can do well in the back. I'm able to land the brine, going for brine number 2, but again I lose CMP. They have to return here. Foul play is not going to be enough to KO. Opponent goes for the foul play. I'm able to tank it and fire off the second brine. This will not be lethal, but it will get them quite low. Toxapex looking for the farm down, but the Sableye with 1 HP remaining makes another foul play. I'm going to let this through, and I'm going to send in Machamp. My hope is with Sableye out of the way, Machamp can do well. Machamp will be answered with Noctowl. Still not the greatest matchup. I'm going to fire off the Ice Punch to win the CMP tie over the Sky Attack from the Noctowl. Ice Punch is going to connect. I can no-shield the Sky Attack here because I am able to survive it and make it to another Ice Punch. And this way, I can either KO the Noctowl or get shield advantage for Shadow Machamp. So I am going to fire off the Ice Punch here. Ice Punch does get the shield. Aggressive switch into the Shadow Machamp. And Shadow Machamp looking for the counter down. They cannot make another Sky Attack after this, so they do have to switch. In the back, they have Lantern. And neutral situations like these are exactly why I have close combat on Machamp. Do they respect the damage? They do not! Down goes Lantern. And that is a good game. We see a tough lead in the next match, Toxapex into Defense Deoxys. Deoxys is another Pokemon that can do quite well versus this entire team, but honestly, if I could see it anywhere, I'd probably prefer to see it on the lead going up against the Toxapex. They're going to be firing off a Thunderbolt. I'm going to let this through as I'm able to absorb that Thunderbolt damage and return fire with the Sludge Wave. This will hit quite hard. Opponent is going to commit the shield, and they're staying in this matchup. At this point, the Poison Jabs have already gotten them below half health, which is quite nice. I decide to commit a shield back. They're going to go for the Psycho Boost. They save switch into Umbreon. I'm going to bank a Sludge Wave for later and bring in Machamp. I could have also brought in the Shadow Machamp, but on the off chance that they were actually running Psychic, I did not want to bring the Machamp in. So I send in the Machamp, and I'm just going to start spamming out Ice Punches here. Ice Punch number 1 is able to connect. Unfortunately, there's quite a bit of lag there. I think I didn't miss any fast moves, which is good. They're going to go for the foul play, and I'm going to farm up and go for another Ice Punch. This Ice Punch should get them into counter down range, which is quite nice. Ice Punch is going to get them low. Opponent is firing off another charge move. Even if it is a last resort, I can tank this. It is the last resort. Opponent sends in Deoxys. I switch back into the Toxapex, and I should have gone for my charge move right away. So that's a misplay. I allow them to make a Psycho Boost, and then I make a second misplay. I go for the Brine. I was hoping that after the Brine I could farm down, but Brine is such a terrible move that they're able to hang on, make it to another Psycho Boost. This is debuffed, but it does enough damage that I get simultaneously KO'd, and I lose a massive amount of energy. So I'm now in a very tough spot. I send in Shadow Machamp, and it's a Guzzlord from my opponent. The thing is, my opponent is probably going to try and catch, so after this Dragon Claw, I have to watch for the Umbreon. Opponent sends in the Umbreon, bring in Machamp, get the counter down, in comes Guzzlord, I get the Ice Punch, and that should mean game over here as Ice Punch gets the shield, and Machamp, with 1 HP remaining, has the charge move loaded. Down goes Guzzlord, and that is a good game. Hopping into the next match, we see yet another core breaker on the lead, Toxapex going up against Galvantula. I'm going to stay in this matchup with Toxapex, as even though Toxapex is taking super effective damage, I can pretty comfortably tank a discharge, and Galvantula is so glassy that even a Brine will threaten it. I'll build up to the Sludge Wave, go for the Brine bait, looking to try and grab a shield, and the opponent does give up a shield. That's quite nice. They're going for another charge move. I'm just going to let this go. At this point, I'm just saving shield advantage for my backline. In comes Machamp. My opponent farming up. They're going to bank energy and send in their own Machamp. but they are quite far behind on energy here. I fire off the Psychic, that's going to connect. I continue to farm up with my Machamp. Opponent is going to make it to a Psychic of their own. This is not going to be enough to KO though, so I can let this through, and then I can overfarm with my Machamp, go for the Psychic, and this will be lethal. So it's decision time for my opponent. Are they willing to expend the final shield? They are not. And what is that final Pokemon? Opponent probably not sending in the Galvantula. It's a Lantern. Lantern looking for the Spark farm down. Machamp makes it to the Psychic. This will get some nice chip damage. And then it's Shadow Machamp time. It actually gets the final shield, and Shadow Machamp is looking to sweep. I think they're going for the Surf, so I no shield, call the bait, and now I'm in a great position to close this game with Machamp. They go for Surf number 2, back in comes Galvantula, going for the combo play, but I still have a shield remaining, so I can shield up the lunge that will debuff me, but I can counter all the way down and leave with the close combat. This close combat may be debuffed, but it's not gonna matter. Goodbye, Lantern, and that's game over. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Toxapex into Obstagoon. This entire team crushes Obstagoon, so I don't even really need switch advantage. My opponent is going to save switch into a Noctowl, and considering I have 2 fighters in the back, I am more than happy to stay in here. They go for the Sky Attack, and I'm just going straight for the Sludge Wave. This will inflict massive damage unless they commit the shield, and the opponent commits the shield. Ideally, I would love to try and get their final shield, so against better judgment, I'm actually going to shield the Toxapex. The reason being, if I can get that shield down, then there is nothing preventing me from close combating with Shadow Machamp in the endgame. They go for the Sky Attack, that is going to start to get me low, and I'm going for the kill shot here with the Sludge Wave. Do we get the second shield? Yes, we do, and that is quite nice. And now Toxapex is going to get KO'd with a move from the Noctowl, but honestly, that's perfectly fine by me, as we're going to get KO'd there, and now I can send in the Shadow Machamp. Shadow Machamp looking for the farm down and gets it. Opponent is going to send in Lantern. Lantern definitely not going to appreciate close combat here. Close combat from the Machamp nearly one-shots the Lantern, and I can just commit the shield, farm down, and I'll have the close combat waiting for the Obstagoon. In comes the Obstagoon, and this will be massive overkill, taking down the Obstagoon and securing the win. Picking up a pretty decent lead in the next match, Toxapex into Noctowl. Again, 2 fighters in the back, I'm more than happy to stay in here, but my opponent save switches into a Sableye, and we know how difficult Sableye is for this team to beat. So now, instead of having my Toxapex aligned onto the Noctowl, I'm forced to stay in with the Toxapex versus the Sableye. Sableye is going to be firing off a charge move here. They go for the foul play, and I should be able to make it to the Brine because I am ahead by 1 fast move. So I am going to fire off the Brine. Brine is going to be no-shielded, and that's quite nice, as I've successfully managed to get rid of the Sableye. They go for the return, and that will be lethal, and I'm just going to farm down with Machamp. This way I do get an energy lead, and hopefully they send back in the Noctowl, and they do. I'm farming up, going for the Ice Punch on what should have been a CMP tie, but my opponent anticipates that, and they go for the extra wing attack. I am able to land the Ice Punch, great counting by my opponent as they go for the Sky Attack just before I'm able to make it to a move. I decide to commit the shield because I do want to try and get this energy off. So I am going to go for the Ice Punch. Ice Punch would be lethal from this health range. Opponent is going to commit the shield, and now they're going for the Sky Attack. I have to hope that I can counter down with Machamp. I'm going to send in Machamp in the back. My opponent has Shadow Swampert, and I'm going for the Cross Chop right away. This will grab the final shield from the Shadow Swampert. Swampert farming up. They are now 1 off the back-to-back Hydro Cannons, and I'm going to have to commit my final shield as well. This is going to come down to a CMP tie, and Shadow Machamp is able to win the CMP. That is absolutely huge. Cross Chop, KOs, back in comes Noctowl. It's a race, and Noctowl is able to hang on, make it to the last second Sky Attack, KO the Machamp, and that's game over. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Toxapex into Obstagoon. Our entire team beats Obstagoon, so this is a very nice Pokemon to see. Opponent save switches into Noctowl, and I'm more than happy to stay in here. This is my best Noctowl counter, and I can save the 2 counter users in the back to absolutely obliterate the Obstagoon. They land the Sky Attack, I'm going for the Sludge Wave, and Sludge Wave is going to grab the first shield of the match. So my opponent wanting to try and get rid of the Toxapex if at all possible. I'm going to let this through. Opponent fires off the Sky Attack. I'm continuing to farm up, going for the Sludge Wave, and again, I lose CMP, and unfortunately, I think the Sky Attack is going to KO, so I will commit a shield. I'm trying to get a shield back, because if I can get shields down, then again, close combat is going to be a lot of fun. I send in Machamp, opponent sends in a Charm, Shadow, Alolan, Ninetales. I fire off the Psychic with shields down. This is going to hurt. Ninetales looking for the farm down, but they end up getting countered down by Machamp. Machamp able to make it to an Ice Punch versus the Noctowl, and Machamp putting in so much work. All that's left is the Obstagoon. Obstagoon counters down the Machamp just to meet the Shadow Machamp. And the opponent concedes the match. Picking up a pretty decent lead in the next match, Toxapex into Shadow Victreebel. Now, Shadow Victreebel is almost always paired with a Bastiodon, and if there's a Bastiodon in the back, then I really like the way that this game is looking, because I have two counter users to absolutely shred the Basti. I'm able to grab a shield, I decide to shield back, and I get baited with an Acid Spray. That is absolutely awful. But I'm going to go for the Brine. This will either give me switch advantage or the final shield. I get the shield, I pivot into Machamp. Machamp gets the counter down. We'll have to see what my opponent has in the back. They have a Wigglytuff, and Wigglytuff is going to be met with a Psychic. Psychic is going to hit for some solid neutral damage. Unfortunately, Wigglytuff will get the full farm down, but I've now put them into a range where I should be able to farm down with Toxapex. Toxapex gets the Poison Jab down in the back. There is the Bastiodon. Send in Machamp, and the opponent concedes the match. Picking up a terrible lead in the next match, Toxapex into Galarian Stunfisk. I'm going to save switch into Machamp. My opponent responds with Trevenant. This is not a good spot to be in, but I did need to bait out the Trevenant. Part of the goal of the Machamp save switch is to bait out either the Trevenant or the Noctowl, so that way Machamp does not have to face it in the endgame. I go for the Ice Punch, but I lose CMP. I have to hope my opponent goes for the Seed Bomb bait, but my opponent knows how to play the matchup well, so they just go straight for the Shadow Ball. I'm going to fully wait my clock, send in Toxapex, and I'm going to look to fully commit to the farm down. I'm shielding nothing. I have to fully rely on Shadow Machamp to try and close this game for me in the endgame. I'm able to get the farm down. My opponent is going to send in that Stunfisk. I bring in the Shadow Machamp, and my opponent brings in Noctowl. Now, this is a matchup where I can actually win the twos straight cross chop, so I do not need to use close combat. As you can see, I wouldn't be able to make it to multiple close combats because these wing attacks are absolutely shredding through my HP. I'm farming up, going for the cross chop on the CMP tie here. Cross chop into the Noctowl. Opponent is going to shield, and I'm going to shield as well because I need to try and get rid of the Noctowl here. I'm able to make it to cross chop number 3. This will KO, but unfortunately my HP is just too low. I'm not going to make it to a cross chop. I get farmed down, and unfortunately, this Brine is not going to be enough to KO. Brine is not a good charge move. They're able to tank the Brine, make it to the Earthquake, and that's just going to be game over for me as Toxapex gets KO'd. Hopping into the final match, leading Toxapex into Shadow Dragonair. Shadow Dragonair, incredibly oppressive fast moves, whereas Toxapex is very bulky. Toxapex farming up, opponent banks and move for later, save switches into a Registeel. I'm going to bank a Sludge Wave and send in my Shadow Machamp. I'm going to shield whatever they throw here, as Machamp would not appreciate a Zap Cannon. They do not get the debuff. I'm looking for the farm down, but realize I can't quite get there, so I'm going to go for the Cross Chop. My opponent did lead with energy on the Dragonair, so if they want, they can force the final shield, but that's honestly perfectly fine by me. I'm expecting that they could be weak in the back to counter, and if that's the case, I am going to double shield this Shadow Machamp. I commit both shields, I farm up, and now I'm going for the cross chop. Let's see, is the opponent looking to shield? Yes, they are. It looks like they're weak, so I'm going for cross chop number 2. Let's grab the final shield from the opponent. Then we can switch and combo play with the Sludge Wave that we stored earlier. Sludge Wave KOs the Shadow Dragonair. In the back, they have Galarian Stunfisk. Galarian Stunfisk farming up. They will be able to farm up to 100 energy if they want to, but unfortunately, it's just going to be too little too late. I'm able to connect with the Brine. They have to Earthquake to KO here, and that is going to cost them quite a bit of energy. So they are going to Earthquake. I'm going to send back in the Shadow Machamp. Shadow Machamp is going to be hit with the Rock Slide. Is it going to be enough to KO? No, it is not. Machamp hangs on with 1 HP. Cross Chop deals the killing blow, and that is a good game. All in all, I was surprised by how effective Shadow Machamp was. This meta is a meta that feels like it's ruled by Noctowl and Ghost types, but despite that fact, if you're able to bait out its hardest counters with Medicham, it feels like Shadow Machamp can put in a lot of work in the endgame, and Close Combat was more of a move that I tried for fun. Rock Slide also quite effective on the Machamp, but man, I really enjoyed getting to absolutely nuke those lanterns with Close Combat. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.